Perfect. Okay, so this morning I'm going to tell you two stories. The first is about the problems and possible solutions to the justice issue in South Africa. And the second is about what I'm doing in my small corner of the world. And I'll break the rules and I'm going to read my speech. So it means I won't go off script. Crime and conflict are two of the great problems we experience as a society. We all expect justice when we find ourselves victims of crime or embroiled in conflict. Even a 2-year-old knows what justice looks like. Try taking the toy without permission. Whether we are the victim of a crime, a victim of a broken promise, a victim of a failed marriage, we look for justice, but we can't seem to find. Lawyers, are expensive, and court cases take forever. And it feels like the lawyers and the bullies always win, and we always lose. I don't think we need to conduct research to discover that the current justice model seems to be failing. That's the problem. What is the solution? One model that can deliver a more satisfying, speedy, and less costly result is restorative justice, or RJ. It is an ancient justice that is being revisited today the world over. Simply defined, RJ is the opposite of traditional Western or punitive justice. And note I said Western. The goal of RJ is to empower the victim and repair the harm, not to punish or penalize the wrongdoer, nor to declare a winner and a loser. RJ seeks to give the parties to the conflict a voice in the process and a say in the outcome. In a traditional Western justice approach, the judge or the magistrate, me, decides on the outcome and imposes a judgment on both parties. RJ gives the parties an opportunity to play an active part in the eventual court order or other outcome. It is a process that can run instead of, alongside of, or part of a traditional justice process. In the context of criminal law, a traditional criminal trial requires the state to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Some of the reason for this is the death penalty. This usually involves secondary trauma to the victim in the form of giving evidence which can be picked apart by the defense. The victim also has little say in the sentence. With RJ, it requires the offender to take responsibility, giving the victims free rein to express how the harm has impacted them and what they need from the offender to bring closure. In civil litigation involving monetary claims, strict rules of procedure can result in an unfair outcome. Or when a civil trial runs, it is up to the judge to decide and then impose this decision on both parties, whether they like it or not. RJ gives the parties the opportunity to mediate a settlement, and this provides a much cheaper and a quicker result with a greater chance of compliance than is found when a judgment is imposed on a defiant debtor. In family law, RJ gives family access to mediation, family group conferencing, or traditional lay forums to insist in crafting their own solutions. I can hear you asking, does it actually work? It sounds a bit soft. Let me address this perception. So, let's take a quick look at the social discipline window. The social discipline window is used to describe 4 models of authority: a doing two-way, a doing four-way, a not doing anything way, and a doing with way. The RJ method falls in the most restorative of the windows, which predicts a high degree of compliance to authority than the other 3. Restorative justice does with, not to or for. So, the fundamental unifying hypothesis of restorative practices, and listen carefully to this, human beings are happier, more cooperative and productive, more likely to make positive changes in their behavior when those in positions of authority do things with them rather than to them or for them. So doing to looks like this. I try not to look like that. And doing with looks like this. And I couldn't find a picture for doing nothing or doing with. But is there any research to back up these claims? The UK government funded a £7 million, 7-year research program looking into restorative justice. And it showed that restorative justice interventions in the criminal law sector rendered 3 positive outcomes: higher rates of victim satisfaction, reduced rates of reoffending, and huge cost savings. So if you can read that, Restorative Council and Victim Support presented the government with evidence that providing restorative justice provided a high rate of victim satisfaction, and in 70,000 cases involving adult offenders would deliver £185 million in cashable cost saving to the criminal justice system over 2 years through the reductions in reoffending alone. People, we cannot build enough prisons. It's impossible. The Matrix report has revealed that restorative justice would likely lead to a net benefit over £1 billion over 10 years. So now you're asking, is it happening in South Africa post the TRC? The answer is yes and no, ja nee. Although there is an increasing awareness of RJ as an alternative practice, there is not much law backing a restorative justice approach in criminal and civil disputes. However, the good news is that mediation is being rolled out nationally in the magistrates' courts by the Department of Justice and backed by your boss, Teresa, the Chief Justice, as the preferred way to resolve legal disputes. In fact, there's a High Court case which is actually penalised with a cost order. That's every lawyer's nightmare, a cost order, for not trying to mediate and settle before running the trial. Similarly, the NPA has included alternate dispute resolution mechanisms. You can hear a committee chose that title. That's their word for victim offender mediation as a measurable objective, although it has yet to give this goal sufficient traction. Then we get the Children's Act, the Child Justice Act, and the Constitution, which gives wide scope for legal practitioners to approach family-based conflict and child protection litigation in a restorative manner. So that's the legal ground. Okay, my story. After I graduated, I practiced law for 2 years as an articled clerk in a divorce practice and 3 years as a prosecutor in a criminal court before turning my back in disappointment on my chosen profession in 1990. I then gave myself to raising 4 children, supporting my husband in the church, school, and apostolic team that he served. And then in 2008, after a year in brutal treatment for cancer, my heart felt stirred to return to law. I found the post-apartheid legal landscape held more scope for me to practice law in line with my faith. The journey of re-entry was tough because the legal profession doesn't easily forgive a 20-year absence. But eventually a door opened, and I was employed by the NPA in 2010 as a junior prosecutor, bottom of the rung, I think I was 47, with colleagues half my age. I was a bit of a novelty. They thought I was quite funny and cool. And I was tasked with working in the child justice and the maintenance court. And then in 2014, a miracle happened. I was offered a position acting as a magistrate in a family court, and that's where I am today. I'm also an accredited mediator, and last year I got a master's degree in the emerging social science called Restorative Practices. My daily work is removing children from abuse and neglect and placing them in safe care. I preside over disputes between parents and sometimes extended family who are in conflict around maintenance, care and contact. And on a daily basis, I see the fruit of poverty, promiscuity, addiction, and fragmented families. And the children are the victims. Without a vision, they cast off restraint. So I try in a small measure to instill hope and vision where I can. I fight with the education department, the health department, and even the Department of Social Development, pushing for service delivery to the most marginalized on the margins of the margin, the children who appear in my courts. The Children's Act gives magistrates the power to subpoena organs of state to give reason for their non-delivery. And we do it, and they hate us for it. There's the quickest way to get a meeting with the Department of Education when you subpoena the MEC for Education to come to court and tell you why Sally Smith isn't in school. It is not being done often enough. If every law firm, and this is an idea I want you to take home, if every law firm dedicated resources to act pro bono over one issue per year, we could show the government that we will not lie down while they ignore our constitutional rights. So the challenge is that we hold government to account to deliver on the Constitution. It's not being done often enough. That Constitution is a masterpiece. It is a beautiful piece of legislation. We need to use it. Okay. Doing my part with no budget. So when I flew up here, Tito Mboweni was on the flight, and I felt like saying to him, thank you for your budget speech and your aloes, but I'm going to do a no-budget speech with cactus. Training prosecutors. In 2012, I was called upon to train prosecutors in the NPA's version of RJ. Given that the ADRM was the new kid on the NPA block, there was no budget for training. So I activated my network. I gathered a team who believed in the project enough to volunteer their services. And so I had 3 lawyers, a psychologist, and a senior law lecturer. And together we ran 3 courses. They were 5-day courses over the period of 2 years and trained about 200 prosecutors. I'm a pastor's wife. I know how to get people to volunteer. For the children's sake, that's actually my motto. In 2012, while still working as a prosecutor, I was approached to assist the Children's Court to work on Saturday mornings with another mediator to mediate parenting plans. And for 1 year, we worked every single Saturday morning from 9 until 1. Today, I have a team, 4 teams, of about 50 lawyers, healthcare professionals, and business people who do pro bono mediation in Wynberg Family Court every Saturday morning. 3 teams work every Saturday morning. 1 team works every Wednesday morning. And they help to settle people in conflict over these issues, care and contact, maintenance, even domestic violence, no cost to the parties, speedy resolution of the matter, and much better outcome than if those cases, which were initially on the roll for a trial, we then postpone them and say, before you go to trial, we're going to try this novel idea called mediation. Don't you want to give it a try? And finally, toys bring joy. The Children's Act stipulates the Children's Court must be child-friendly. Guess what? No budget. So, I started taking my own grown-up children's unwanted toys. I started a teddy cupboard, and every traumatized child that came to my court, I invited them to choose a teddy to take to their new home. Today, I cannot contain the flow of donations that pour into the Children's Court. And they pour in and they go out. They pour in and they go out. Children's Act requires that the voice of the child be heard, and I take full advantage of it. Some of the training I did in the degree that I took was around what is called narrative conversations. And by speaking to the children in a respectful and compassionate way, you cannot believe how much they disclose to me, the magistrate, that the social worker's eyes come out on stalks. It's a skill that I had to be taught, because as my husband will tell you, I'm not such a good listener. But I was willing to learn it, and I'm using it every day in court. These are some pictures. You can't take pictures of these because I'm not allowed to show the faces. Look at that creative Duplo thing. I love it. That's a little stacking toy that the boys have to try and figure out how to put the big five on top of each other. I've got a ball pool. They jump in it. The balls fly all over. Yeah. No money, no cry, with apologies to Bob Marley. So my point is that even with no budget, you can activate, you can find resources. People who don't need the money should give pro bono. Maybe that sounds prescriptive, but lawyers, doctors, psychologists, social workers, etc., there are people in the private sector who I'm sure if you ask nicely, you say, can you just give a percentage of your annual time to this particular project? Just once a month or once a year even. It's a way that we can top up service delivery. To end off, all law essentially governs relationships. Believe it or not, social cohesion is the goal of all law. So therefore, good law practice should ultimately result in good relationships. Where relationships break down, whether it's in the family, the school, the workplace, the community, none of the solutions posited at this conference will work. So we need a restorative response to conflict and crime so we can repair what the conflict and the crime has broken, which is trust, relationship, social cohesion. I'm only one person employed by government in a specialist field. I found that by tapping into private sector resources, I've been able to exponentially increase the quality of service delivery. I believe we can see problems as opportunities to find creative solutions by drawing on local resources and willing people. The mustard seeds we sow have the potential to become giant trees of shelter, shade, and provision. The resources are out there, people. We just need to find them and unlock them. Thank you.